Welcome back to True Crime Kenya. This is not a story of bloodshed, but of betrayal on a national scale. The Goldenberg Scandal of the 1990s, the single biggest financial crime in Kenya's history. The scheme, it began with a company called Goldenberg International, headed by businessman Kamlesh Patni. On paper, Goldenberg was exporting gold and diamonds. In reality, Kenya possessed neither in any meaningful quantities. So how did it work? At the time, the government operated an incentive scheme designed to encourage exports. Businesses that brought in foreign currency were rewarded with generous compensation, as much as 35% above the value of the goods exported. Goldenberg International exploited this policy. They claimed to be selling gold abroad, but most of it was either smuggled in from the Democratic Republic of Congo or simply invented on paper. Using political connections, the company was able to secure massive payouts. In effect, they were being handed vast sums of public money for exports that barely existed or did not exist at all. The effect on the economy was devastating. Funds meant for schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and social services were siphoned away into fraudulent transactions. By the time the scandal was uncovered, Kenya had lost at least $600 million, the equivalent of over 60 billion shillings in the 1990s. Some economists argue the real figure was far higher, amounting to nearly 10% of the country's entire GDP at the time. The Kenyan shilling collapsed. Inflation soared. Ordinary citizens bore the brunt, facing higher prices, fewer opportunities, and collapsing public services. This was no one-man con. Goldenberg was shielded and sustained by powerful figures at the highest levels of government. Investigations implicated senior politicians, civil servants, bankers, and government officials. Whispers even reached the office of then-President Daniel Arap Moi, with suggestions that members of his inner circle had profited. At the center was Kamlesh Patni. He styled himself as a brilliant entrepreneur, but his success was built almost entirely on political patronage. Patni became the public face of the scandal, but he was far from the only one involved. The aftermath. When the scandal finally broke in the mid-1990s, it sent shockwaves across Kenya and beyond. A judicial commission of inquiry, chaired by Justice Samuel Bozia, spent years examining the case. Its findings confirmed what many had long suspected. A vast fraud had been committed with deep state involvement. Yet justice was elusive. Some officials faced charges, but many cases collapsed. Others quietly faded into the political background. For ordinary Kenyans, it was a bitter lesson. When corruption reaches the top, accountability rarely follows. The legacy Goldenberg is remembered not only for the astronomical sums lost, but for the long-lasting scars it left on Kenya's future. It crippled the economy, entrenched a culture of corruption, and eroded public trust in government institutions. Even today, the word Goldenberg remains shorthand for grand corruption, a byword for betrayal at the highest levels. And perhaps most devastating of all, no blood was shed. Yet the suffering was immense. Millions of Kenyans endured poverty, hardship, and lost opportunities because of the greed of a few. Not a single bullet was fired, not a single scream was heard. But the Goldenberg Scandal robbed an entire nation of its promise, leaving behind wounds that have yet to heal. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to follow us.